So when you're working on writing a cover letter, this is an absolute necessity when you are applying for a job. Whether you're going to be applying for a job online or whether you're going to be doing it the traditional way and actually mailing in the resume and things like that, you have to put a cover letter with it. Because your resume is only one page and it's bullet pointed and it's kind of a brief glance at your work history, what the cover letter does is it gives you an opportunity to really expand on the things on your resume, or even bring up things that you want to talk about that you weren't able to fit on the resume. So there is a way to actually do this. So if you pull up the cover letter PowerPoint, we're going to go through how to set up one of these. Now, a cover letter does not need to be printed on thick resume paper or anything like that. You can print one of these just on regular printer paper. When you are mailing a cover letter and a resume into a job, you want to put the cover letter on top and then your resume underneath, and then fold it in threes and then put it in the envelope. Because when the employer opens the envelope, you want the cover letter to be the first thing that they see. So, let's go to the second slide with cover letter basics. So, again, this is going to be the first document that the employer sees, but it's going to be really hard for you to write a cover letter if your resume is not finished first. The cover letter is probably the hardest thing for someone to write because you really have to brag about yourself. And for a lot of people, that's really difficult to do, especially in a job setting, especially for women a lot of the times. We have a tendency to just think of the negative things, or, if we give ourselves a pat on the back, it sounds like, we're egotistical idiots. So the cover letter is going to be pretty hard for you. Typically, it's about 3 paragraphs long, and I can give you the formatting for the first paragraph and the third paragraph. But the second paragraph, you're pretty much on your own, and it's going to be the hardest paragraph. But I'll give you some kind of outline for it. So, when you're writing a cover letter, everything absolutely has to be perfect. Everything has to be spelled the right way. Everything has to make you look fantastic in black and white. Any spelling mistake, any errors in punctuation, errors in tone of your message can prevent you from getting a job interview. And the thing is that a lot of people think that a cover letter and a resume are going to get you the job, and that's not the case. You want the cover letter and the resume just to get you the interview. And then you in the interview and with the thank you letter, that's what's going to get you the job. So all of these little pieces end up adding together. So the cover letter and the resume are getting you just an interview at this point. So let's flip to the third slide of things you need to do before you write a cover letter. So you absolutely need to write your resume first. Writing a cover letter without having a resume written is going to be a whole lot more difficult. Then you want to make a list of your direct and your transferable skills. So, what I mean by that is a lot of the times we have jobs that have nothing to do with the fields that we want to go into. So when I was 16, I was in charge of the photo department at CBS, but I wanted to be a journalist, and those things have nothing to do with each other. So there were some things that I learned running the photo department that I could need as a journalist, like good customer service, building a rapport with customers, keeping a customer's trust, stuff like that. Those things that can apply to 2 completely different fields, those are called transferable skills. You learn them at one place and you can transfer and apply them to another field. Direct skills are from one related job to the next. So if you've worked at a nursing home and you want to work as a nurse in a private practice, the same nursing skills are direct skills. So, after you've written your resume, you want to look at what direct skills and what transferable skills you have. Usually the transferable skills are the harder ones to think of, and you need to be a little creative in figuring out the things that you've done. But if you can figure out what skills you have to offer, it's going to make writing the cover letter a lot easier. for every single skill that you're going to talk about in your cover letter, you want to be able to back it up with an example. So for every skill that you end up listing, think of an example from your work past that demonstrates what you're talking about. So for example, if I want to focus on the transferable skill of good customer service, I can say, for example, in running a photo department, I needed to be able to handle customer complaints with ease and something like that. So that's an example that you want to use with every single skill you have. That example, what that does is it's going to help show the employer what you're capable of instead of just telling them. So, if I tell you I'm never going to cheat on you, it sounds fantastic, but if I actually show you and I never do it, then that speaks volumes. And that was a really weird example, but it was all I could think of at the moment. The point of the cover letter, again, is that you're going to expand on the stuff that you wrote in your resume, or you can even highlight some things that you weren't able to fit on the resume. So, let's flip to the fourth slide with how to format one of these. So, the cover letter is going to be in a block style letter. What I did is I created a kind of a blank cover letter for you to show you where the spacing is going to go and, what you write where. So, you should have those physically or digitally or something like that. That's going to help you through this as well. A block style letter is where you start all of the paragraphs along the left margin, and instead of indenting paragraphs like you might be used to with essays, you actually skip a line between each of the paragraphs, and that's how the reader can see the difference between the paragraphs. That's why if some of you might have done that in an essay, I commented on it because you only skip spaces between paragraphs when you're doing that traditional block style letter. So, no matter what, you always need to know the name of the person you're sending the cover letter to. You find that out through some research. You might have to call the place. If you're applying to a bigger company or facility or something like that, you might need to find out who the HR director is. If it's a smaller place, sometimes you send it directly to the physician or something like that. So you have to do a little bit of legwork there and actually call the facility and find out who receives resumes. Not only do you find out who receives them, you need to know how to spell the name properly. If you spell this person's name wrong, you're not gonna be looked at, to be quite honest with you. When I used to do hiring and reviewing resumes and things like that, I used to look at who actually put in the legwork to find out what my name was and how to spell it correctly. And if you couldn't figure that out, that makes you look pretty bad. You think about all those times you might have written an essay, and I'm like, you have all my syllabi, make sure you spell my name right, because it's that little attention to detail that shows something about your character. So you want to make sure you know the person's name and you get the person's name spelled right. You can never, ever send a cover letter without a specific name on it. So, like I said, this is going to be 3 paragraphs long. The first and last paragraphs are really tiny, and I'm going to give you some samples you can follow. It's the second paragraph that's going to be kind of difficult. Sometimes for some of you, if that second paragraph gets a little too big, you can split it. So you can split that middle paragraph into 2 and end up with a 4-paragraph cover letter, but that's kind of few and far between. The cover letter is only going to be 1 page long, and you're not even going to take up the entire page, to be honest with you. The paragraphs themselves maybe take up half a page, and then the addresses and salutation and all that kind of stuff, they take up all the extra space. So, at the end of the cover letter, you always want to make sure that you hand sign it, so you actually write your signature in. Do not be lazy and type in your signature with a cursive font, because that makes you look bad. Like, you could print the cover letter out, and you could take 2 seconds to sign it. I promise, it's not that hard. But when you're you're applying for a job, any little thing that you can do to show that attention to detail and show that you actually put that much time into it is going to show the future employer that how badly you actually want to work there. You want to use an easy-to-read font and an easy-to-read size. You don't know the age of the person who's going to be reading this, so I would suggest using 12-point font, no smaller, no bigger. You don't need to. And an easy-to-read font, I would, Times New Roman is always a staple. You could also use Calibri. You could use Arial or Courier New, but Times New Roman is kind of your gold standard there, so that's always a safe bet. Typically your margins are going to be at 1 inch. The only time that you're really going to play around with your margins a little bit is if for some reason your cover letter is so long it can't fit onto one page. But again, that's pretty few and far between. So for now, set your margins at 1 inch. And then if you run into an issue with length, we can figure that out later. So here's how to do the addresses on a cover letter. Let's flip to the next slide. So you have to make sure that you abbreviate an address correctly, and I know that that sounds really weird, but when I was in grade school, they actually taught me how to address a letter. Now, with email and Twitter and texting and all that kind of stuff, I don't really know if that is concentrated on that much. But there are specific ways to actually write a street address, and when you abbreviate street and boulevard and when you don't, and when you abbreviate north, east, south, and west and when you don't. So you have to make sure that you know that stuff and you get that stuff right, because if you can't properly punctuate an address, again, that could negatively speak about you, even though it's something so small. So again, for the 8,000th time already, only 12 minutes into this recording, you have to make sure you know the person who's getting this cover letter and how to spell it properly. Also, a lot of the times people have an issue with abbreviating the state. So I gave you 2 examples. If you do a big P and a little a, then it gets a period. If you do a big P and a big A, then there's no period with both capital letters. Traditionally, the big P and the big A is usually the route you want to go when you're doing an address. But if you do it the other way, make sure you do big P, little a, and a period. There is never a comma between the state and the zip code, which a lot of people have a tendency to do. So be careful of that as well. So when you're writing your cover letter, if you're able to get me a draft before your final cover letter is actually due, I can help troubleshoot you and help look for those things and help you out. So let's look at the specifics now of what is actually going to go in these paragraphs. So if you flip to the next slide, let's talk about paragraph 1. And what I'm going to do here
I have no idea what just happened.
Is I'm going to tell you what has to go in each paragraph, and then I'm going to give you an example of how to write that. And I'm going to let you steal parts of my example. So in the first paragraph, you want to let the reader know why you're sending the letter and the exact position that you're applying for. So you can't just say, I'm applying for a job at Walgreens. I have no idea why that just popped in my head. Because do you want to be a cashier? Do you want to be a stock boy? Do you want to clean our toilets? What do you want to do here? So you have to, in your cover letter, specifically state what you actually want to do there. Then you also want to explain where you saw the job ad and when you saw it. Because that helps them figure out what kind of markets are helping them advertise these positions. If you found out about the job because of somebody who already works there, do not use their name in the cover letter. Depending on what websites you go on to, some will say that a cover letter is a great place to name drop. Personally, I think you need to be really careful about name dropping. Sometimes it can be really helpful, and sometimes it's not. So you know how there are some people who you can be really good friends with them, but you can't work with them? or vice versa. It's great to work with them, but you just can't be friends with them. I always suggest avoiding the name dropping, because what happens if you're friends with them and you drop their name, but the people they work with don't like them very much, or they're not a caliber employee? You only know them in a friend capacity. You don't know them as a coworker capacity. So the worst thing you could do is drop a name and someone goes, ew, they know them, never mind, I don't want to hire them. So I have a tendency to recommend avoiding the name dropping just in case. The last thing that you want to put in this first paragraph is called a selling sentence. So it's a persuasive statement. So if you've survived my English class, you should know what that means. But it's a persuasive statement that usually lists one or two qualities as to why you are going to be perfect for this job. Now, let me give you a little tip with these selling sentences. Please don't ever imply or state outright that you working there will somehow make the place better, because all you're doing is insinuating that right now the place sucks. And that's not going to be a good thing. You want to be complimentary of the place that you're potentially applying for. So don't say that you're going to come in and make everything fabulous, because then that just means everything sucks right now. So let's show you an example of what paragraph 1 looks like. So flip to the next slide for me, if you will. So here's what I made up for you. I am writing in response to the advertisement for the full-time LPN, you could even say position, I saw on Monster.com on Wednesday, January 12th, 2013. My extensive background in the medical field and passion for helping others makes me ideal for this position. Okay, so flip to the next slide. I'm going to break this down for you. So, this paragraph is only 2 sentences long. So when you actually print this or type this on a document, it's probably only going to take up a line or 2. It's really not going to be that long. And that's okay. We're not looking for the same kind of paragraph structure that you may be used to from writing essays and papers and things like that. So, the first sentence shows why I'm writing, the position I'm applying for, where I saw the advertisement, and when. So the other reason you want to show when you saw the advertisement is because you're going to put an overall date on the cover letter of when you're writing it. So a lot of the times that can show urgency. So if you saw the ad on January 12th and you're writing the cover letter on January 13th, you really want the job. If you saw the ad on January 12th and you're not writing the cover letter till March, apparently you need to get the lead out of your butt and you don't really want the job that bad. So that's going to be the structure of the first sentence. You are totally able to steal my sentence and just replace the elements that are different, like the position you're applying for, where you saw the ad, and when. But otherwise, you're more than welcome to take how I wrote that sentence. Now, the second sentence, that's the selling one. Notice it's persuasive. Notice that it's probably going to be difficult for you to write because you got to brag about yourself, and that can feel really awkward and really weird. Again, you should be able to write a selling sentence on your own. You are definitely not allowed to steal my skills, because your skills should be different. You should be able to think about your skills yourself. So, there are 2 skills that are listed in this, my background and passion for helping others. So those are the 2 skills that I have that I offer to them that would make me perfect for the position. It wouldn't make the office better for having me. It would make me fit in really well. So that's all there is to paragraph 1. So let's move on to paragraph 2. Again, this is going to be the hardest one of the entire cover letter, because even though I can give you some guidelines for paragraph 2, this one you're really on your own with as far as how you construct it. It's also probably going to be the hardest one because you need to totally brag about yourself and boost yourself up. And again, that can be really hard for a lot of us to do. So, you can work the second paragraph one of 2 ways. You can either focus on a past job and bring out all of the skills that you used in that job. That's one way to do it. Or you can organize the paragraph by listing different skills and kind of weaving together examples from different jobs you've had. I think you should probably figure out which way you want to go about it before you start writing your second paragraph. So do you want to focus on one job and all the skills, or focus on the skills from a bunch of different jobs? So, here's what you're going to do in that second paragraph. You want to highlight the skill and talk about what the skill is. You do not need to label it in the cover letter as a transferable or direct skill. That's just something for you. And then you want to give an example. So, for every single skill you list, you want to incorporate an example of where and how you did this. So you want to do more showing than telling in this cover letter. And that's something that is difficult to do. So if you don't get it on the first shot, it's okay. Just keep trying. So let's look at the next slide, because I'm going to give you an example. Now, this example for paragraph 2 on that slide is actually one that obviously I wrote, but this one's actually about me. So I want you to see the difference between the showing and telling here a little bit. Now, I'm doing this a lot longer than you guys are, so I'm not expecting you to be able to create what I just did in this slide. If you can't, it's no big deal, but this is kind of what you're shooting for. So, while working as a front office manager for a busy 4-physician practice, I was required to be organized, patient, and disciplined every day to handle the 140 patients we serviced each day. Missing only 4 days of work in 5 years enabled me to build a solid rapport with all of our practice's patients. While there, I trained colleagues on MEDEN EMR software, managed a staff of 4 secretaries and 6 nurses, created on-call schedules, troubleshooted all computer and MEDEN issues, all while still completing typical secretarial responsibilities. My abilities to multitask, delegate, and work independently were essential to my success in that position. So that's the difference between showing and telling. So what I mean is, if you look at that paragraph, what kinds of things do you learn about me that I did not state directly? Yes, you should be talking out loud right now to the recording. So, maybe you learned that I am responsible because I only missed 5 days of work, or 4 days of work in 5 years. I'm reliable. I can handle a lot of stressful situations. I can be good in a leadership position. And anything else that you may have mentioned. So, I didn't state those things outright in the cover letter. Nowhere did I say, hey, I'm really reliable, or hey, I'm trustworthy, I swear.
Hey.
What I did was, I let the reader figure those skills out themselves by showing them different examples. I hope that kind of makes sense. Again, if you can't do this on the first shot, that's all right. But this is what you're striving for. This is what is going to be a little bit more helpful than flat out saying, I'm responsible, I am trustworthy, I am helpful. Yeah, showing an example of how you are those things is more helpful. Okay. So, I hope you're feeling okay so far. It is a little overwhelming, but that's all right. If you've never written one of these before, it's really difficult the first time out. After that, it gets a little bit easier, because what you could do is, once you have kind of a first cover letter written, then after that you can just kind of alter the cover letter based on what job you're applying for. You don't have to keep rewriting these things over and over and over again. So, if you notice in this paragraph 2 example, what I did is I focused on one job and pulled in a bunch of different skills, instead of pulling out different skills from different jobs I've had. So, breathe, We're almost done. I'm going to show you paragraph 3. Paragraph 3 is not hard. It's okay. So let's flip to the next slide. Paragraph 3, again, it might end up being the second paragraph of paragraph 2, if that makes any sense. So earlier I was saying that sometimes your second paragraph might get so long you have to split it. So if you have to split it, then technically paragraph 3 is another body paragraph, and it would be paragraph 4 then that would be your closing. If your middle paragraph just stays as one element, then your third paragraph is going to be the last thing in your cover letter. If it's the last thing in your cover letter, here are the things that you want to do in that paragraph. And again, paragraph 3 is going to be probably the same size as paragraph 1. You want to thank the person who is reading it. You want to thank them for their time. You want to add a different selling sentence that's going to incorporate different skills that have not shown up in paragraph 1 or paragraph 2. So this cover letter is your chance, it's your real estate to bring out all these different skills. So you don't want to repeat any, because then it sounds like you don't have any other ones. If you're wondering what that little symbol means, the kind of backwards P with the S after it, it stands for paragraphs. You might remember that from English class. And again, at the end of that third paragraph, you want to create a statement of looking forward to speaking with them again. So, flip to the next slide for my sample, and then we'll break it up. Thank you for your time and consideration for this position. My extensive knowledge of HIPAA and OSHA regulations, as well as CPR and first aid training, make me a strong addition to your company. I look forward to speaking with you soon. So, flip to the next slide. I kind of break it apart for you. So the first sentence, I am thanking them for their time, and you can literally steal my sentence. In the center with the HIPAA and the OSHA and CPR and first aid, those are different skills that I was able to bring up that weren't anywhere else in my cover letter. And then the very last sentence is future contact. If you choose to include HIPAA in your cover letter or on your resume, in your thank you letter, anywhere in your portfolio, if you spell HIPAA wrong in the medical field, that's a big, big no-no. Then you don't deserve the job. So make sure that you're checking that you're spelling HIPAA correctly, because you are all better than spelling it incorrectly. Notice that nowhere in the letter are there any verbiage or wording that is, I think, I hope, I feel, I want, nothing like that. When you put those kinds of phrases in front of a sentence, it doesn't make it sound as confident. So, when you're writing this cover letter, if you find yourself starting a sentence with I want, I hope, I feel, I think, or something like that, finish writing the sentence, and then when you're finished, just delete the I think, I hope, I want, I feel, because you want to sound really confident in this letter. Even if behind closed doors you're not that confident, in this letter, you want to sound like the Mac Daddy, to completely date myself. Yeah, go ahead, laugh at me. That's all right. I'm laughing at myself internally. Okay. So, that's going to be the third paragraph. Let's flip to the next slide, because here's some of the things that you don't want to do. And I just mentioned some of these. You do not want to have any errors in this cover letter. Remember, these people don't know you, so this is the only chance in black and white that they have to get to know you, and unfortunately, they are going to judge you. If you spell your name wrong, which has happened many times, they're going to judge you. So you have to look as fabulous as you actually are in black and white on paper. Don't forget examples. Examples. Even if you only have 2 skills you can think of, then beef that cover letter up with a ton of different examples that shows that skill in different settings and in different ways. We talked about the I thinks and da-da-da-da-da. Don't repeat the same skills throughout, because then it looks like you don't have any other skills. And again, don't say that you'll make the place better, because that is just so cocky and horrible. So, those are the things you don't want to do. The next slide are the things that you absolutely do want to do. So, you must research the place that you're applying. You absolutely have to use a person's name on the cover letter. Hopefully you've understood and heard the fact that I've said that a ton of times already. You need to spell everything right, format it properly, and really take the opportunity to totally sell yourself. You guys have survived a program and worked on patients and made it to where you're at for a reason. Many of the times if you look around, there are people you started with you have not finished with. So you deserve this job, and you are good at what you do, and you need to really be able to highlight that. It's also very helpful to incorporate your research into a cover letter. So one of the good things about doing in the second paragraph is incorporating some of the things from the job description or like the advertisement. Incorporate those things into the cover letter. So if they're looking for someone with computer skills, highlight that in your cover letter. Things like that. So on the next couple slides are just different examples. I'm on slide 16 if you're keeping count. This one is a totally creative cover letter that is very eye-catching. This is not what you're going for. In the future, of course you can do something like this, but this is not what you're going to be doing for our class purposes. This is a kind of cover letter if someone is working in graphic design. They may make something like this because this also illustrates their abilities in computer design. So if you flip to the last 3 slides, that kind of looks like what you're going to be doing. Each one of them has the date and the address in a different spot. So the handout that I gave you, that's what you want to go by with where to skip the spaces and where to put different elements. But ultimately, these 3 pictures is what it's going to end up looking like. If you go to slide 18, which is the middle picture. This one probably most closely represents what you're going to end up creating. So your address goes at the top, then the person's address who's receiving the letter. The only thing that's missing off this picture is the date element would go before the Dear Mr. Isaac. But otherwise, that one's pretty much the closest. I couldn't find a picture of exactly what we're looking for, and I stole these off Google, so you can Google these as well. Microsoft Word does have some cover letter templates. To be honest,
to be honest, you don't need the Microsoft Word template because I'm going to give you a template, as we talked about. So I'm just going to pull that up really quick so that you can see that. And you will be getting this as a handout or digitally. So this is what yours is going to look like. And you'll be getting one like this, and then you'll be getting another one that shows you where to skip spaces. So this is where you would put your information. This is where you would put the information of the person receiving the letter, the date of the letter, and then Dear whomever. Notice, again, this is single-spaced, and then we've skipped one line in between each paragraph. You want to skip 3 lines before your closing, and you always use sincerely. You don't have to get creative with thanks or all my best or hope you hire me or anything weird like that. Just do sincerely. You want to type your name down here, and this is where you would actually input your signature. Okay, so I hope that this helped. If you have any questions, of course, don't hesitate to ask. Send me rough drafts, and I'm here if you need me.